What's going on, guys? Week 8 already here. Really, actually surprised it's already halfway through the season. It's been going extremely fast. I've been having a blast, even though I'm 2-5. But definitely, I'm still having a good time. Wanted to get the video up. I'm gonna do a little different video. You guys can pop on the scoreboard. You know who won and lost last week. You can even look ahead to week 8. Like I said, I wanted to kind of do a little bit of a standings thing, MVP award for players. Most valuable player in each position, biggest surprises, and also biggest disappointments. So I kind of wanted to do a little different video just because I don't feel like drumming on and on. You guys know who won, you know who the studs were last week. It gets kind of redundant, so I just want to do a little different video to kind of break it up at the halfway point of the season already. Looking at the standings, guys, in the NFC, we have Jeff pacing it at 5-2. Behind him, we have Aaron and Joe at 4-3 apiece, and then you have me and Jared at 2-5 a pop. We're not totally out of it, guys. I'm just made the trade with Mike. I'm really trying to, trade away some assets to get better. I pretty much have to win 6 in a row to even make it. Jeff's looking dominant. I expect him to be in the playoffs from our division for sure. It's just fighting for that second place spot in the NFC. And down in the AFC, you got pretty much 2 great teams and then everybody else fighting, trying to get up there. But a huge injury last week really changed the landscape of the AFC. You have Eric's team, who's the best in the league at 6-1. It's pretty much the top 2. It's Eric and Nick along with Jeff. And then everybody else. I think those 2 teams are just one tier ahead of everybody. They're 6-1. They've had tons of surprise players. They've hit on a lot of draft picks. Got to give it to those guys. Eric and Nick definitely either just prepped well or they're lucky. Hey, more power to you if you're lucky. That's part of fantasy football. Speaking of unlucky, Brock and Dalton traded for Arian Foster, and he blows his Achilles. I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. It's Arian Foster. The guy's an absolute stud, but he's got the health issues, and it cost Brock and Dalton. To me, it's just an unlucky thing for them. But Chris Johnson's been there. They're still 5-2. They're number 2 in the division by 2 games. So I expect that team to make the playoffs. The receivers are great. They got 2 good defenses. I don't know if that's really a good thing. But they got a good team, guys. So, look for them to be in the playoffs possibly, and to basically keep up pace and finish second in that division. Behind them, you got Jabi and Nico tied at basically 3 and 4 apiece. And then you have Mike at 1-6 at the worst team in the league. Mike's just had a really bad running back situation. He's hoping to change it up, shake things up a little bit with the trade. But yeah, Mike's been struggling. So, he's looking for some keepers, but he's also in the mix and trying to win now. So, which is really good to see that Mike hasn't given up, which I knew he wouldn't. So, that's kind of it for the standings, guys. Now on to basically the midway awards, your MVPs, your most surprising players, your most disappointing. At quarterback, 2 big names, 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. For me, this is all my personal stuff, obviously. To me, quarterback is a no-brainer. MVP award, I think, goes to Tom Brady. He's the best at the position. He's, basically, 12 points ahead of Phillip Rivers, who is my most surprising quarterback. I don't believe he was drafted until later. He's number 2 on the player rater right now, quarterback. He actually gets the co-award with Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton not drafted at all. He's number 3. He's sitting only 7 points behind Phillip Rivers, who's been really good this year. Carson Palmer's got to be up there. Blake Bortles. Jaguars offense, everybody laughs at it, and he's the number 6 rated quarterback right now. So I got to hand the MVP to Tom Brady, and then obviously most surprising, Phillip Rivers and Andy Dalton. On the opposite end of that spectrum, like I said, 2 big names, is Peyton Manning. I believe he was the 3rd or 4th quarterback off the board, and he's been just downright awful. The arm looks bad. He's getting old. The offensive line is a huge part of that. But, he's got to be my most disappointing. Considering the value and where he was drafted, he's just been bad. And so there's, you start to see the age, and the immobility is just a big issue for him. But that's the quarterback position, guys. The running back position, as we knew, was going to be kind of hard to figure out, but you expected those big names to be there. And Right now, looking at the top 10, I'm just going to name off the top 10, and I think only two of those guys I expected to be there. Number one, Devontae Freeman. He is head and shoulders above everybody. MVP and most surprising by far at the position, in my opinion. Nobody expected Devontae Freeman. They expected him to be the goal line back, but Tevin Coleman to really eat into it, and he has just been downright nasty. He's been averaging 22 points, literally carrying Eric's team. I mean, even Eric has Gurley and all these good receivers and Gronk, and literally Freeman is bar none his best player. Mark Ingram, you expected him to be borderline top 10. He's number 2 right now. Doug Martin is number 3. Matt Forte, no surprise. He's going to be a top 10, usually regardless. He's number 4. Chris Ivory, number 5. Danny Woodhead, number 6. I mean, this is a guy who broke his leg last year. Nobody expected him. I ended up getting him really late in the draft, and he's number 6 running back. Le'Veon Bell, you expected him to be there. He's 7th, and he's missed 2 games. Chris Johnson, number 8. I think he was a free agent pickup. Jamal Charles, guy's been out a couple weeks, and he's still in the top 10. So minus him, you got Adrian Peterson, no surprise there, and then Lamar Miller, rounding out the basically 10th guy if you take away Charles, which Lamar Miller, nobody really expected, borderline. He sucked, but then the last 2 weeks has been amazing. So guys, you look at that top 10, there's no Lacy, which he is my biggest disappointment this year, along with C.J. Anderson. I mean, those guys had high expectations. In normal drafts, they were top 10. If they were in our draft, they would have been in keepers, top 5 players, taken in the first part of the draft. So those were my 2 biggest disappointments. And like I said, my MVP and my most surprising is definitely Devontae Freeman. There's no question. Onto the receiver position, DeAndre Hopkins is pacing the league. He's 6 points ahead of Julio Jones. But he's the number 1 in the position, surprisingly, once again, owned by Eric. Eric just has all the good ones. Rounding out the top 10 in receivers, guys, think about these names too. You got DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Larry Fitzgerald, Allen Robinson, Keenan Allen, Antonio Brown, Allen Hurns, T.Y. Hilton, James Jones, and Brandon Marshall. Those are your top 10. So, thinking about it, guys, there's tons of talent at the receiver position. I'm trying to go back and read and look for it because I'm going to miss some names, guys, and you're going to disagree with me because I'm going to forget some people. In terms of the highest tiered and the most disappointing because I didn't really prep very well. I was trying to do it at work. We were fucking slammed. Anyway, got to be my most surprising for a receiver position has to be Larry Fitzgerald, and probably Allen Robinson. Along with Allen Hurns. I mean, you have 2 Jacksonville wide receivers in the top 10. That's insane. To me, that's hands down with Blake Bortles, the offensive system. Very surprising. So all 3 of those guys get my vote for most surprising. MVP at the position, I gotta probably take DeAndre. He's been just an absolute. If this was PPR, he would be way up here. The guy gets tons of targets. Favorite, and he's really now the only playmaker in Houston, so he's gonna get looks, gonna carry the pace the remainder of the season. So don't be surprised if he paces the league. And then obviously, my most disappointing would probably be tied in with Peyton Manning is going to be Demaryius Thomas. I mean, I drafted him and I was disappointed owning him, in the fact that he hasn't had the major yardage and the major touchdown totals like he did. He only has 1 touchdown. The guy's, every year in and out, 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns, 12 touchdowns. You can lump together most disappointing with Des Bryant, injury-based, Alshon Jeffrey, injury-based, Mike Evans, injury-based. So, there's a lot of guys in there that you could say are most disappointing based on the injuries. At tight end, surprisingly, this is the easiest one, is most impressive tight end at this point is Gary Barnidge. Guy's 8 points behind Gronk. I mean, that's crazy. 8 points behind Gronk. He's got 81.5 points compared to Gronk's 89.3. Tyler Eifert's up there at 70. Greg Olsen at 61. Tight end's always a toss-up anyway. Obviously MVP's got to be Gronk, especially the remainder of the season based on quarterback situation and chemistry. Gary Barnidge definitely has to be my most surprising, like I said, and Gronk the MVP. At tight end, it's hard to say who's a bust and who's very good. Going over all the tight ends here. Julius Thomas, I don't think he was even drafted in our league, but everybody's kind of talking about him being, a major threat possibly. But anyway, looking over it, I have to say my biggest bust would either be probably Martellus Bennett. He's ranked 13th. Everybody expected him to be a top 5 tight end, so I'm not ultimately surprised. I won't do kickers because it's Gostkowski and then everybody else. And I don't know who a surprising kicker is. So looking at the defense, guys, this one's easy to me. It's the Broncos defense. The way they've been playing, they score touchdowns. They have 106 points. They've scored more than Gronk. Actually, they've outscored every tight end. Receiver-wise, they've outscored a lot of receivers. I think actually they've scored more points than DeAndre Hopkins. So, and then the next defense is 72. So I would say they're the most surprising defense based on how much they've scored so far. They're my best scoring player. I don't have anybody who's scored more points. I'd say maybe most surprising, it probably has to be the Broncos. I mean, there was 4 or 5 defenses taken before them in the draft. And like I said, they're averaging 17 points. The next best is 10.5. So, my biggest bust defense, probably the Dolphins at this point. They're outside of the top 10. They were drafted probably inside the top 7. Not that I'm 100% great on these defense. I'm trying to remember off the draft, but that's pretty much it, guys, in terms of your MVP, your halfway point MVPs, most disappointing, most improved. Do I expect Demaryius Thomas to be better? Yes. I expect Peyton to get a little more comfortable in that offense. They're gonna find a way to get to their playmakers. They're undefeated, so they're gonna keep doing the things that they're doing to win games. Peyton's not gonna throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns anymore, but that running game's not great. They're going to find Demaryius and Emmanuel Sanders. Those guys are going to get their touches. Do I expect Devontae Freeman and some of the other surprise guys, Chris Johnson, Danny Woodhead? Do I expect Jeremy Hill, another one that I was going to say was kind of, a disappointment. But do I expect that guy to get held down for long? Do I expect Lacey to get held down? Do I expect Mike Evans to stay at the bottom? No. These guys they're proven talents. They're studs. I expect Dez Bryant to just come back swinging when he's in. Do I think Andy Dalton's going to finish as a top 5 quarterback? Probably not. Do I think that Phillip Rivers will finish there? Yeah, probably a top 5. He's looking that way, and that offense is geared for it. Do I think Danny Woodhead will probably finish top 10? Yes, I really do. Like I said, there's definitely some surprises out there. Do I think James Jones will finish in the top 15 at receiver? Probably. Based on all the attention on Randall Cobb, and the guy just scores touchdowns. Once again, another Eric-owned player. Antonio Brown, he's been kind of held back, and he's still scoring a ton of points because his quarterback hasn't been in there. Do I expect Antonio Brown to keep basically rising up? Absolutely. And another Eric-owned player. The guy owns studs, and great draft for him. But that's just my opinion, guys. Maybe talk about it on the side comments just to see, how your opinion differs. Obviously I'm just kind of shooting off the cuff here, but we're going to do something a little different, a little more fun. If you guys have any questions, complaints, comments, please post it on the side. Activity's been pretty weak. I'm looking at the poll Brock just put up. 4 people have voted on it already, but it's probably the same 4 to 6 people that are on every week. Rankings haven't been done in a couple weeks. Nobody's really commenting on the matchups as we go or voting, which it happens. I understand. Your team starts losing, you get out of it, including myself. I'm trying to get a little more active here, so please, if you guys have questions, feel free to post. Look at the group text. As I know, as annoying as it can be, it's still just try and stay active as best as possible. That's all I can ask. So that's all I got, guys. I'm going to quit going on. It's already at 14 minutes, so it's going to be a long-ass video to load. But I do appreciate you guys, always watching the video and definitely keeping the league what it is. So, get on, like I said, talk to the matchups, check out who won last week, obviously. Look at the Week 8 previews. We're halfway home. So now's where you're going to see the injuries take place, the keepers start to develop. It should be really exciting to watch the rest of the season. So good luck, everybody. I will see you next week, and we will see you soon.